First and foremost, the image that you see usually of the guy with hat and suit is not gone. That's Roland Deschain, a central character in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. He is a gunslinger on a quest to reach the enigmatic Dark Tower and fulfill his destiny. But, as this video is not about him, I am not going to talk much about him, but if you have an attention span enough to read a novel with nearly 50,000 to 100,000 words each, then I would suggest to give this series a chance. If you are into horror fantasy-based adventure stories, Stephen King, the author of the novel, is also described as the king of horror, so you know his work slaps. But anyway, the subject matter of this video is not Dark Tower or Stephen King. We are here for the power scaling of GAN, which, out of the three topics, is the lamest one. But regardless of that, let's begin with GAN. GAN is a central and mysterious concept in Stephen King's Dark Tower series. Described as the Supreme Being, or the All God, GAN is the force or entity that created the multiverse and all its dimensions, including the Dark Tower itself. It represents the ultimate source of power and existence in the series. Throughout the series, GAN is often referred to indirectly, and its true nature remains enigmatic. The characters in the story, particularly Roland Deschain and his quartet, often seek GAN's aid or guidance in their quest to reach the Dark Tower and save their worlds. GAN is portrayed as a benevolent force, associated with light and creation, in contrast to the malevolent Crimson King, who seeks to destroy the tower and bring chaos to the multiverse. You might have heard of the infamous lines regarding grains of sand containing its own universes in power scaling debates, which is one of the many misinterpreted lines about Dark Tower scaling. You see, there are many statements in Dark Tower which are metaphorical and not meant to be taken literally, so taking the statements as serious feats is basically stupid. The concept of a universe within a grain of sand is a metaphorical and symbolic idea within the series, highlighting the infinite possibilities and layers of reality within the Dark Tower universe. It should not be taken literally as a scientific explanation or representation of the universe. Similarly, throughout the series, there are many instances where the given statements do not convey exactly what it says. These statements have deep meaning inside of them. So, if you are thinking of scaling Dark Tower for yourself, think twice and assess the statements properly. I would suggest to read the story, as without context, you won't understand shit and won't be able to make out which statements are metaphorical and which are literal. So enough talk about that. Let's move up in the cosmological route. The Dark Tower universe is portrayed as a vast and complex tapestry of interconnected realities, each with its own unique characteristics and inhabitants. There are also different time levels or dimensions that play a role in the story. The immediate present or near future within the storyline, which is the timeline in which the characters are actively experiencing events and making decisions, is called short time level. And the overarching timeline that spans across centuries or even millennia, which encompasses the cyclical nature of the Dark Tower universe, where events and characters repeat in different iterations throughout time, is called long time level. This concept is often referred to as Ka, which represents the eternal and interconnected nature of fate and destiny. The interplay between the short time level and the long time level is a recurring theme in the series, as characters navigate their immediate circumstances while also being affected by the larger forces of destiny and the continuous cycle of events. The concept of time in the Dark Tower universe can be complex and non-linear, with characters sometimes experiencing time travel, alternate realities, and other temporal distortions. The Dark Tower itself is depicted as a massive structure that consists of multiple floors or levels. These floors represent different stages or dimensions within the Dark Tower universe. Each floor has its own unique characteristics and challenges that the characters must navigate as they ascend towards the top. The exact number of floors in the Dark Tower is not explicitly defined in the series. However, it is implied that there are numerous floors, each with its own set of trials and obstacles. The floors of the Dark Tower serve as symbolic representations of the different levels of consciousness, reality, and existence within the Dark Tower universe. The Dark Tower is also a metaphorical construct, and its representation in the series is often abstract and symbolic rather than a literal physical structure. The floors of the Dark Tower serve as a narrative device to explore deeper themes and concepts within the story. I hope you are slowly understanding the point that is being made in this video. The distinction between literal and metaphorical elements in the Dark Tower series can sometimes blur. The series often blends fantasy, science fiction, and elements of horror, creating a unique and layered narrative that invites readers to interpret and engage with the story on multiple levels. Ultimately, what is literal and what is metaphorical in the Dark Tower series can vary depending on individual interpretations and perspectives. This allows readers to explore and engage with the themes and ideas presented in the series in a personal and meaningful way. And I strongly believe that the author's real intention, even though the work is open to interpretations, is the metaphorical route. And I think anyone who has read Dark Tower would back me up on this one. So, in the Dark Tower series, Gan represents a metaphorical concept of a higher power or divine force. Gan is often associated with creation, balance, and the natural order of the universe. Metaphorically, Gan can be seen as representing interconnectedness of all things, or as a guiding force, or as the balance between good and evil, and the concept of destiny and fate. So, obviously, personally, I would say that Gan is a metaphorical concept and not a scalable entity, but as the interpretations to the story are open, just for the sake of estimating a scale for if the character is taken literally instead of just being a metaphorical concept. We will move further into the cosmology presented in the story. So, Dark Tower has many scales. Some believe the characters are just superhuman tier characters, and the story involves metaphorical concepts which people mistake as actual entities and statements, whereas some believe the statements are literal, and therefore scale Dark Tower from range of outerversal to even layers into boundless, based on stuff that I will mention now. So, if you take the statements and things in the verse literally, then you can find that there is infinite dimensional spaces of both higher and lower magnitudes present in the verse, which is basically high hyperversal. And that's achieved relatively in the early stages of cosmology of the verse. There are planes, levels, and entities incomprehensibly above all of this. Each floor of the Dark Tower contains inconceivable amounts of realities, and each reality contains such infinite dimensional spaces and beyond inside of them. There is no specific mention of number of layers of floors that the tower has, but each step is inconceivably higher than the previous one. There are many such levels which are coming ahead, and I don't think it is necessary to go in depth for each and every one of them, unless it is necessary to do so. The multiverse in the Dark Tower series is a complex and interconnected system of parallel realities or dimensions that exist alongside each other. These realities have their own unique characteristics, laws of physics, and inhabitants. There are many worlds in the Dark Tower series. The mid-world is the primary setting of the series, a post-apocalyptic world that combines elements of Western, fantasy, and science fiction genres. It is inhabited by various creatures, including humans, mutants, and otherworldly beings. Keystone Earth is a reality similar to our own world, and often referred to as the real world, or our world. It serves as a central point of connection to other all-time realities, and is where characters from different dimensions may interact or cross paths. Throughout the series, Roland and his quartet encounter various other all-time realities, each with its own unique characteristics and challenges. These include alternate versions of Earth, such as the Topeka reality devastated by a super flu pandemic, and the New York City reality, etc. The Dark Tower itself is a central element of the multiverse, serving as a linchpin that connects and stabilizes the various dimensions. It is described as a massive, enigmatic structure that stands at the nexus of all existence. Thinny spots are portals or gateways that allow travel between dimensions. These spots, scattered throughout the multiverse, serve as points of connection or access between different realities. The Todash darkness is a malevolent force that exists outside the multiverse, in the Todash void. It is a realm of nothingness and serves as a source of fear and danger for the characters. Toe-dash. Creatures emerge from this darkness to prey on the inhabitants of different realities. The toe-dash void is said to be the space between worlds, a void that exists outside of the known multiverse. It is a place where creatures known as toe-dash creatures reside, and it is from this void that they emerge to prey on the inhabitants of various realities. The concepts of life and size can be viewed as being higher than the multiverse as well. In the series, it is also implied that the Dark Tower exists beyond the toe-dash void. The nature and function of the tower suggests that it exists on a higher plane or level of reality. It represents a transcendent force that influences and governs the multiverse, including the realms that are affected by the toe-dash creatures. The Deadlights, which can also be seen as a void or a void-like entity, as they exist outside the boundaries of our reality, possess a chaotic and destructive nature. The Deadlights are a cosmic, malevolent force that exists beyond the Dark Tower. They are often associated with the creature known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown in Stephen King's novel, It. The Deadlights are described as a form of energy or consciousness that is capable of driving those who witness them insane or causing them to lose their minds. In the series, there is a concept known as the Beam Guardians, which includes a hierarchy of powerful beings associated with the guardianship of the beams that support the Dark Tower. These beings are often referred to as turtles due to their turtle-like appearances. The three turtles which are the most prominent beings in the hierarchy of turtles are Dandelo, Shardik, and Matron. Dandelo is a vampire-like creature and a beam guardian associated with the beam of the lion. He feeds on emotions and is capable of manipulating people's feelings to sustain himself. Shardik is another beam guardian who is associated with the beam of the bear. He takes on the form of a massive bear and is known for his immense strength and ferocity. And finally, Matron is the oldest and most powerful of the beam guardians. He is also known as the turtle and is associated with the beam of the turtle. Matron is depicted as a cosmic entity that supports and protects the Dark Tower and the multiverse. Macroverse is the larger reality in which the multiverse and the Dark Tower exist. The Macroverse encompasses all dimensions, worlds, and realities, including the Dark Tower itself. The Macroverse is depicted as a vast and complex cosmic entity, often described as a tapestry of interconnected universes and realities. It is the overarching framework that encompasses everything within the multiverse, including the various levels of the Dark Tower. Prim is used to refer to the fundamental or primal state of existence. It could be seen as the origin or foundation of the Macroverse and all its dimensions and realities. If we consider the Macroverse as the encompassing reality that contains all dimensions and worlds, including the Dark Tower, Prim could be understood as the underlying essence or source from which the Macroverse arises. The true toe-dash void, also known as the primordial toe-dash darkness, is a concept introduced in the series. It is described as the ultimate void, the primal darkness from which all realities and dimensions emerge. It is the state of existence that predates and underlies all other realities, and is often associated with chaos and destruction. Crimson King, the central antagonist of the Dark Tower series, draws power from this primordial darkness, and beyond all of that exists Gan's void, which is described as the space or emptiness within the universe that exists between worlds and dimensions. Gan's void is often depicted as a neutral or empty space, separate from the chaos and darkness of the true toe-dash void. It is sometimes referred to as the space where realities are born, or where they return when they end. It is suggested that Gan's void is a place of potentiality and possibility, where new worlds and realities can emerge. It is connected to the overarching themes of creation, balance, and the cosmic forces that shape the multiverse. Gan's void is often associated with the benevolent forces that oppose the destructive influence of the Crimson King and the true toe-dash void. So yep, that's pretty much the entire cosmology of the series, and I will say this again, this is only if you consider the statements and stuff that goes on the series. Literally, then, and only then can you scale the series to high tiers. And my personal scale is more based on mathematical scaling, so as long as I don't see proper mentions of cardinals and their use in verse, I don't scale the verse to boundless range, so at max with interpretations of multiverses, the interpretations of structure of the Dark Tower, and the scalings of true Void and Gan's Void, will at max keep both Gan and Crimson King at few layers into outerversal, and that also due to statements suggesting existence of structures and entity outside of the spectrum of the all-encompassing cosmos of the Dark Tower. So that would fit for the definition of outerversal. But as always, there are going to be people who will stretch the definitions to absurd lengths to scale the characters extremely higher than the normal scale. Some stretch the statements of multiverse and state that the multiverse in Dark Tower is a Type 4 multiverse, and through this, they wank Gan beyond boundless level. Some wank Maturin's statements, and some take the metaphorical statements literally and get an imaginary boundless scale. So overall Gan has many different scales based on different interpretations of the story. And as with any other work in fiction, Dark Tower also grants the reader's allowance to interpret the work as however they feel like. So all the scales are subjective and based on opinions. So just because I consider the characters and concepts in the story a certain way, doesn't mean that that way is a universal way that all the readers have to interpret. Different viewers have different interpretations, hence different scales. So, this video is more of my view on it, and not the universal view of the topic. Do not solely rely on anyone, not me, nor anyone. Think for yourself and come to your own conclusion, instead of relying on any other source. Form your own scale with your own understanding of these works. That's all that I have for this video.